Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? Welcome back to the wrap up with myself, Jamie Talks. Now, let's get into it straight away today, guys. Lots of comments coming in already. I'm just going to get everything set up. All right. If you do want to follow me, first and foremost, there is my socials. Jamie Talks on all socials, predominantly Twitter, where I am talking all things West Ham on a regular basis. I actually think the title of this stream is a little bit misleading. Is the honeymoon period over? I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's even begun, really. Well, I say has it begun? I just think it's unfair. I think Graham Potter's going to do better things to this football club than what Julian Lopetegui said. But let's get into some of these comments straight away. Randy in here nice and early. Jamie, how are you, mate? Right now, we are going through transition right now, so I would really not judge Potter until he gets his key players back and his side is to truly judge him as season is right off. Yeah, you're not wrong there, mate. It will be bumpy for the rest of the season, Jamie, as Potter will be looking into who stays at West Ham and who goes in the summer. Will be where Sullivan must back Potter and McCauley for rebuild. Freddie Potts with a nice assist tonight. Leslie, how you doing? Thanks for coming. Jamie and Randy, hi. Do you think Sullivan will stay out of rebuild? No, I think he owns the football club, so I think he'll be heavily involved as he owns the football club. Yeah. Hopefully, Leslie, as he needs to back Potter and McCauley to at least fix the damage that happened in the summer and needs to put it right, hopefully. We need a massive rebuild and now change my opinion of Potter and hope he and his team could be the perfect team to rebuild. Downside is Sully will Sully be able to let them? Well, that's the golden question. Right, now where to start? I think since last week, it was all roses last week. Obviously, we came into this into last week's show, fresh off a big win against Fulham midweek. And yeah, I think we went into a Crystal Palace game on the weekend where I actually felt quite confident, felt like we were going to get something from the game. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out. I think obviously there'll be, questions into the performance and all sorts of things like that, especially someone like Konstantinos Mavropanos who got sent off, for example. It's never good when you get Crystal Palace fans singing cheerio when you're walking off a pitch in your own home ground. And I can remember like when he was sent off, wasn't acknowledged by Potter when he obviously walked down the tunnel. There was no kind of warm embrace from his teammates or anything like that. So clearly made big mistakes, 2 yellow cards. And Jean-Philippe Mateta obviously had his way over him for the full 90, until he was sent off. I think it's a strange one with Mavropanos. I think, joined us, 19 million about a year or so ago, start of last season, I believe. And I think he's always been liable for a mistake here and there. And it was strange because he came from a Bundesliga and he was in that Bundesliga team of the season. And he was very much a different player in the Bundesliga. He was like a player that would have a pop shot from the edge of the box and scored big goals for Stuttgart, but hasn't really been able to replicate that kind of form for West Ham. And I think his decision making has remained a weakness in his games. And I think he needs to clean that up immediately if he wants to have a future at West Ham, especially under Graham Potter. I think ultimately the deal for Mavropanos went through when we tried to get Harry Maguire, and obviously that fell through, and we got him as an alternative. And I don't think he's actually lived up to the hype ever since then. And I think things like, we've had multiple players that we've gone after, people like Jonathan Tah as well, who obviously had a standout season with Leverkusen last year and would never come to us now. But I think against Palace, he came in and was deputising for obviously the injured Jean-Claire Todibo, but he hasn't really shown enough to show himself capable of being like a first choice defender at this level. And I think he's prone to too many injuries. He's obviously had some high points. I remember the goal against Arsenal away from home last year. Was that on Boxing Day, I believe. Big game, and obviously picked up a big win there. And I'm not saying it's all been poor, but I just don't like Mavropanos and Kilman together, and I think they've really regressed as a partnership, and just isn't good enough to be of the level. So, we've spent 120 million in the summer, and Max Kilman even struggled on the weekend. And he's meant to be a 40 million pound defender. So I don't think we've had a good season defensively, and I think Graham Potter really needs to be changing that sooner rather than later. We've conceded what I think off my head, I think we've scored 43 goals, which I'm pretty sure is the third highest in the league, or fourth highest in the league. And the other teams that have conceded them, I'm pretty sure they're all in the bottom four. So the loss against Crystal Palace for me wasn't necessarily the end of a honeymoon or anything like that, but it was kind of maybe an eye-opening experience for him that West Ham needs some reinforcements. And it is also that, there's a hell of a lot to do at this football club in terms of turning things around, because performance on Saturday was very much like the performance that we've seen all year. It just wasn't good enough. So, yeah. It was gutting to obviously lose another big, I say London derby. They are a London derby. But, you never want to see us losing those kind of games, but we definitely need to be improving defensively if we can move forward. But I think with the imminent hopeful return of Crescenzio Somerville will be a little more damaging going forward, and hopefully Jean-Claude Todibo can be back soon. And obviously it's positive that we've got Jared Bowen back in training today. Hopefully that means we can actually try and push up the table and give us some sort of opportunity to get into the top half of the table. But it will be a tough ask for sure. Let's get into this thing, guys. Okay, let's get into some of your comments. So yeah, Mark, how you doing, mate? Good to see Bowen back in training today for sure. Good to see we actually agreed a signing. It's not done yet. It isn't. Anyone who follows XWHU employee, which is half the West Ham fan base, obviously he's put something out and then gone back on that information straight away. So I wouldn't take that information with its weight, because it's not weighted at anything right now. Who starts alongside Kilman on Saturday? I mean, it's an interesting one. I think maybe it really depends on if Jean-Claude Todibo's fit. If not, he could maybe bring in. Depends how he lines up, really. Like, you could go with the back five again and go with two in kind of like left backs. So you could put Cresswell in a back three, or Wan-Bissaka in a back three. I'm not entirely sure. You'd like to think that Jean-Claude Todibo will be back, so we can go to a back four. But again, Aston Villa are no mugs, so it'll be interesting to see how he does line up. I mean, obviously you've got someone like a Kaelin Casey as well who could come in, but I'm not 100% sure he will start. I think it'll be dependent on who's injured. Lee, evening, Jamie, how are you, mate? I am well, thank you, mate. I've just finished work, came straight on here, so shattered, but always happy to talk a bit of West Ham with you guys. How are you? I understand that, but he's having a medical tomorrow. Well, hopefully, Zach. Scott Alvarez at centre back, asking Casey to mark Durang is wrong. Oh, you're not wrong there, mate. Imagine that, though. It'd be the biggest West Ham thing, wouldn't it? Obviously, put in this £57 million bid and whatnot. We gets declined and he comes and scores a hat trick because we've got no fit centre backs. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Barry, good to have you here, mate. Hope you're all good. I am well, thank you, pal. Hope you are well also. Hope your week is treating you well. I don't know how you can't rate Casey, mate. You've barely seen enough of him. I think he's obviously done well at youth level. Was obviously part of that that side that won the FA Youth Cup a couple of years ago. It just hasn't really had much of an opportunity in the West Ham side, and when he has been given an opportunity, it's often been as as a wing back. So it's not really his game. I think he could do a job maybe, but against Aston Villa will be a tough ask. Do we have Louiselle? Who knows? Hi, Bill Clark. Well, Leslie says hi to you, Bill. How you doing, mate? It's about time we and the board realise who we are. We're a club that is generally mid-table side that occasionally punches above their weight. Expectations need to be lowered. Nothing changes. Welcome to the stream, Motta. Would be nice to dream though, wouldn't it? We back JLo, but not Potter. 12 million is not backing a manager. I think it's because of financial fair play reasons that we can't do it though, because we spent 120 million in the summer. We're West Ham United Football Club. Like, I don't think we have an abundance of riches, so it's just not realistic to then go spend another huge amount of money. I also think Graham Potter has an enormous amount of quality in the squad. I don't think it's necessarily just on Lopetegui as to why West Ham haven't worked this season. I think the players haven't performed, and I think it's on Graham Potter hopefully to get these players performing. Scott is hard to back a manager in Jan, especially when everyone is asking overpriced for everyone. Yeah, maybe. Today, both back in 4 to 6 weeks. Well, it shows you how close to that story I am, how out the loop I am. I was at the game on Saturday, but I was filming. I was working with Guinness on the day, doing some things around Premier League match days. So my West Ham news is out of date. I'm reading the Patreons, I'm reading Twitter, but somehow I missed that. All right. As for the honeymoon period, current manager hasn't had a full squad of players to pick from yet. And considering how bad the squad is, I hope he doesn't get too giddy, especially with Sully's short hands. We love insulting Sullivan, don't we? I would play Casey as Cresswell don't bring much to his game anymore. Delivery, that's about it. I hear you. Grealish scored in the Battle of the Cheats. What is it? Oil Classico, isn't it? For me, it isn't about the winning or losing. It's about the performance. We can't judge Potter until next season. Casey and Duran are the same age, remember. Bet Forest fans aren't saying that, Mossa. There we go. Dare to dream, Mark. Dare to dream. I wonder if the Amazon sponsorship deal will go through. It's an interesting one for sure. I never know what to believe a lot of the time. There's so much faux news nowadays, like where it's just like absolute nonsense. And there's also but at the same time, there's no smoke without fire. So who really knows what's actually going to happen at West Ham United? Obviously, let's talk a little bit about the player that has been linked with us. Obviously, it's Ezekiel Banzuzi. I mean, for me personally, I think this could be a good signing. I know, obviously, we've had the update from ex-WH employee this evening talking about the player wanting to come and whatnot, and the deal being allegedly agreed and whatnot. And there's been all sorts of kind of rumours over the last few days that a deal was done for 10 million or whatnot. I hope it bloody is. I'll be honest with you. I think, obviously, for me, I'm all for it. You know, the guy's 19 years old, obviously plays at youth level for the Netherlands and whatnot. You know, he's got P&P, pace and power. You know, big box-to-box midfielder. He's versatile, plenty of technical ability, maturity beyond his years. You know, all the cliche terms that you'd attribute to a new player coming into a football club. And ultimately, I think he's just got the physical profile to be built for the Premier League, you know, and hopefully our midfield that does need legs at times. So, you know, you look into our midfield at times and it isn't very mobile. You've got Edson Alvarez, Thomas Souček, you know, Guido Rodriguez, 3 fairly immobile centre midfielders that all bring different things to the game and whatnot, but there's not much legs in there. So whether a Banzuzi could come in and maybe rival them, you know, could be an interesting one, because I was always ashamed. It was always a shame, in my opinion, that we never signed Onana. You know, obviously, he ended up going to Everton for big money, then went on to Aston Villa, scored twice against us this season. But someone of that ilk, I know he's a little bit smaller than Banzuzi, but someone of that physical profile that can really, like, you know, look to dominate games with his kind of like his physical profile alone. Obviously, like Paul Pogba-esque. There's so many players that are of that Paul Pogba ilk. Like your Onanas, like your Banzuzis, players like that who just have their physical profile. And fingers crossed he could come in. The question is, what is actually happening with Banzuzi? Seeing loads of different reports. Who bloody knows, mate? But we can speculate, can't we? We can speculate for sure. Regarding would a 19-year-old go straight into our lineup? Probably not. No, but he'd be an option, and I think like I say, like we are struggling a little bit with squad depth at the moment. Somehow, with all the money that we spent in the summer, obviously we had a lot of injuries. I don't think an extra body in the door that could be a physical profile and look to have all the things on paper that would help you kind of perform in a Premier League team. I don't think it's a bad thing to have someone like that as an option in the football club. Let's just hope he can actually perform on the pitch, because on paper he's doing everything, So, Barry's saying he's a nice little box-to-box midfielder who's over 6 foot. It's going to be good. Hopefully he can score a few goals for us, but can't say he's a wow signing, but could transfer for sure. This I would consider a gem. Wonder if he has anything to do with Stighton. I was wondering that, Mark, especially given the lack of attacking option and the refusal to give Guillaume a chance. Evening, we must go and buy a centre-back. Sorry, Stu, completely misread that. Evening, we must go out and buy a centre-back, box-to-box midfielder and striker. Zach coming in saying he's had over 100 appearances. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's clearly an impressive young kid. I think he's having a solid season. I think he's got 5 assists and 1 goal in 20 odd games or something like that. Like in the Belgian league, obviously you can take a lot of things with a pinch of salt in the Belgian league for sure, but he certainly looks to be having a decent start to his career, and I think he's represented multiple levels of underage in the Netherlands and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's anyone that I think you look at. The reason that kind of excites me, and I'll be honest with you, is like you look at Graham Potter and the kind of like the recruitment team that he had at Brighton, and they were picking up players from obscurity. He was picking up players from out of nowhere. Players that no one else was picking up, and he was a star maker. Like think about all the players that Graham Potter improved and helped get Brighton up to a different level. I'm thinking about people like Mark Cucurella, people like Alexis McAllister, like all sorts of top players that have then gone on to do bigger things in bigger clubs and whatnot, even like Moises Caicedo, for example. So Yves Bissouma, all these players that were at Brighton have kind of developed into better players and under Graham Potter. I think there's benefits to bringing someone like in. So when you see like an obscure name like this linked with a football club, I'm not necessarily too unhappy about it. I think it's relatively inexpensive transfer. 10 million in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot. Bear in mind we spent the best part of 30 on Luis Guilherme for an 18-year-old, so he's a year older. He's got about 100 career appearances across the Eredivisie and the Belgian Pro League. So it seems like a relatively inexpensive signing. He's young enough to probably have some sell-on value as well. So even if it doesn't work out and he's in the Premier League, or I think there's an opportunity for it to actually, there's an opportunity to improve things. So let's get into more comments. There we go. So we have that kid from Paris FC coming in. We certainly do, my friend. Yep. He is also a centre midfielder. His name is Kante. Yeah, Mohamedou Kante. Plays centre mid. Yeah, he's having a fairly strong season. Obviously, we sent him back on loan this year. But yeah, I mean, it's it's a very much a young kid that we are. I couldn't tell you the stats of the guy. I don't know anything about him, but whether he comes straight into a West Ham. West Ham team, I just couldn't tell you. I know he hasn't been on in the squad a lot this year. I know he hasn't like really featured much for Paris FC in the second division of France, which isn't always great. You know, I think he's been in the. I'm just looking it up now. I mean, he's been on the bench a couple of times, but hasn't actually played a lot. So it's an interesting one, to say the least. But yeah, I'm going to start wrapping things up anyway, guys. How are we feeling about the next game against Aston Villa? I mean, I think when the last time we played them in the cup, obviously we got the later kickoff this Sunday. I think, is it like 4:30? You know, I think I'm intrigued by that game. I think the game where we played them in the cup, the first 45 minutes, I thought we were really, really impressive. Lots of good performances across the pitch, and I think it was the start of Lucas Paquetá starting to look like the player that we all know and love. So I'm hoping that we can get some sort of result out of it. Obviously, they've got games in Europe this week, so they you'd like to think they'd be tired. We have that extra time, to recover and whatnot, but not 100% sure on what to expect from the game. You know, it's Aston Villa at home. You know, they're a good side. I think, West Ham are not necessarily in the best form right now. I know we had a good result against Fulham, but even then there were a few mistakes. You know, Aston Villa are comfortably in the top 10. So looking at the table, we are 10 points behind Aston Villa with about minus 15 goal difference. So it'd be good if we can eat into that minus goal difference and maybe get a win somehow, or at least sneak a draw. That'd be a great result. Let's get a few more comments in before we do wrap up the show. Just a quick one tonight, guys, because I am shattered. So Mark thinks 3-1 to Villa. Stu's going a little bit more optimistic with a 2-1 win. Paul says training looked good today and Bowen was out there. That's what we love to hear. We will do well to lose only by 2 goals. Who knows? Sounds very West Ham. Would love to see Bowen make the bench Sunday. I would rather not rush him back, to be honest with you. If he's ready, he's ready, and if he's fit, of course. But I would rather not rush the guy back just to get injured again. You know, he's so important to us. We haven't lost him by more than 1 though, Peter. Last one win from Paul. He says a 2-1 win. Okay. And Leslie agrees with me. No, Mark, let's not rush him back. More damage done, bringing him back early. Couldn't agree more. But guys, that has been a quick one for me. Only about 20 minutes or so today, just to wrap everything up. Not loads of news, just lots of fake news, lots of reports and whatnot. Lots of players that are obviously being shipped to the club and offered by agents and all sorts of things like that. But who knows what to believe? This Banzuzi on paper does look good. I would love to see him at the football club just because, he's a young kid that looks to have a bit of promise. And it's not often West Ham find ourselves doing that. So fingers crossed, it would be lovely. But we will find out if it does actually happen. In the meantime, guys, it's been a pleasure. You can follow me on socials at jamie.talks. I am over on Twitter over there, always talking a bit of nonsense here and there. And people are always letting me know. But in the meantime, guys, have a lovely week. Enjoy your weeks and your weekends. And I will catch you next week, 9 p.m. Sweet.